Hey everyone, welcome to the Human Skills Lab. Because human skills aren't soft, they're essential. I'm Heidi Peace, an educator, and I'm so excited to be here with you.
And I'm Kobe Campbell, a school counselor and licensed clinical social worker. We're coming together to encourage and equip you to build the skills for a better life. Whether you're feeling overwhelmed or just looking for a little motivation, you're in the right place. Although we come from an education background, this podcast is intended for everyone.
In every episode, we'll share practical tips that you can actually use. Plus, we'll answer your questions and maybe even have a little fun along the way.
So get comfortable, take a deep breath, and let's figure this out together. We're so glad you're here.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute professional advice. Our views are our own and do not reflect the views of the school district for which we work.
All right, now that we've got the legal language out of the way, good morning or good afternoon, whatever it is when you're listening to this. Thank you for joining us in our little corner of the podcast world. Today on Human Skills Lab, first, we always do an accountability check-in on our next steps. And so, Heidi, do you want to start with what your accountability check-in is about? We talked about last time we talked about when things are not going according to plan, you're trying to live your values and things are getting in the way.
So one of the goals I had for myself was to maintain and increase my energy. And I feel like with the start of the school year, whether you're a parent or a student or a teacher, there's new routines that can be made, and they are going to be made the easiest right now. So what I have gone with is, all right, this is happening. I'm going to throw my excuses away and accept the fact that I need to get out and exercise, see my friends, get it on the calendar. So those are two of the things I've used to increase my energy is exercise and friendship. And it's really been much more successful. I'd say this is probably the best start to my school year in over 20 years. So I'm really happy with the start. And another thing was art.
Yeah.
One of my friends introduced me to watercolors, and I've been doing it like a lot. It's very relaxing. It just helps my brain just chill out. And honestly, it's fun to make something like a beautiful landscape. Well, as beautiful as I can make it.
It's beautiful, subjective.
Beautiful in air quotes.
Creative expression
is suggestive of a beautiful landscape.
Creative expression is worthy regardless of what it looks like, right?
Yes.
No, but I've seen your watercolors and they are beautiful. So I would say no.
What about you, Kobe? What are you doing with your
my accountability for this last week was to maintain my exercise routine. When the school year starts and I'm trying to live my wellness value, the first thing to go is exercise because all of the things take over, or I let them take over. And so this time my intention was to move my body, just continue to move my body. And so while I think when I made this intention, it was more, I want to do something extra, yoga, go for a walk, do something. This week, what I have done instead, if I haven't had the time or the bandwidth or the energy level, is track my steps. And if I'm getting over 10,000 steps, I'm considering that a successful day in terms of moving my body. And often I'll have more than 15,000 just because I'm running around doing all the things, even after work, we're showing our house. And so like moving things, cleaning things, doing all the things. And so that has helped me to feel like I have maintained that movement sort of routine, even though I haven't done intentional ththings every single day. Some days I will. I'll throw my tennis shoes on after work and go for a walk. Or in the morning, I'll do some yoga, a 20-minute yoga video before I get started with the day. But I would say it has been successful because I've been intentional about if I'm not meeting that goal, finding something else that I can do for exercise that day, if that makes sense. So again, maybe not the most successful start in 20 years, but a successful start in terms of maintaining my routines and living my values. So, and one thing that wasn't on our accountability thing, my personal accountability from last week is like setting boundaries around taking work home. Just saying, okay, I'm leaving for the day, and really being intentional about spending time with my family when I get home, and that's been very successful this past week. So,
That's great. I'm
yes,
not there yet.
yeah,
There yet. But eventually I'll get there.
yeah. Your start is a little different than mine too, though. I mean, our roles are different, and your start is, you know, um, very different than mine. So, mine will ramp up soon enough.
Yes, it will. All right, so on to today's
Yeah.
main topic, having difficult conversations. We all
Yeah.
know those and love them, right?
No, I don't. But
You don't love
I
it?
don't
Oh,
know anybody. Well, okay, maybe some people love difficult conversations. That's kind of a, fun
it's a
thing for them.
skill.
It's a
It's a,
game. It's a, hey, let's see. But when we're talking about productive, difficult conversations, I don't think like conflictual or, where there's differences of opinions um, or actual hurt feelings. I don't know anybody who loves those.
no.
But I think we can learn how to manage them in a way that feels better so that we're not feeling like avoiding them all the time, you know? So I think that's some of what we're going to talk about today.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that you hit it right on, like, perfectly. Like, I feel like we all need to have those conversations, and we need to have them frequently to get comfortable with them and to build our skills for those really hard conversations where feelings might get hurt.
Yeah.
So, like, not walking away from a conversation because you deem it might be a bit awkward or difficult, but rather stepping into those to get some practice.
Yeah. And I think I want to draw a distinction here between abusive situations and your normal everyday sort of difficult
Yes.
conversations. When you're dealing with a situation that has caused you trauma, or that is clearly abusive, that's a whole other set of, that's a whole other set of supports that you may need. We're talking about these difficult conversations that we're a little anxious about, that we think could go south. But we're not today talking about those situations that are longstanding trauma or that may need therapeutic support for, if that makes sense. I just want to make sure we noted that because those are different situations that can require a lot more support. And some of the concepts and strategies we talk about today will apply there as well, but support will be needed to use them and to debrief after conversations like that. And to decide if it's wise to have the conversation in the first place. So, in talking about having difficult conversations, they can cause a lot of dysregulation, anxiety, upset, stress. Should I do this? How am I going to do this? What are they going to say? And so the number one thing, or you might be angry and not anxious, just angry. Like this is somebody did that violated a boundary, and it's a difficult conversation to have because you don't like conflict, but you really feel like this boundary needs to be upheld. So the number one step, um, I would say to having difficult conversations is regulate yourself. Like make sure that you're in a calm enough space to have the conversation ahead of time. Because what we know about dysregulation is that we've talked about the hand model of the brain. If we're not regulated, if our lid is flipped, the thinking and rationalizing, a rational part of our brain is not. We call it the wise owl at school, right? It's not engaged. It's disengaged, and your amygdala is in charge, and the amygdala is all about protection. So, fight, flight, or freeze. You're either going to have that fight conversation, or you're going to avoid the conversation, or you're not going to know what to say and freeze. And so, being regulated, before you even start it, I think is always going to be the first step. Um,
And I was wondering if you could offer like a little test to see if you are regulated. Because many times I
mhm.
can sense whether a student or a parent or a family member, I'm like, ooh, You're not
Hmm.
regulated.
I just
But
want to do
you
this right now.
can't you can't say that
Yeah.
to them, and they feel like they're just fine. Oh, I'm
Hmm.
fine. I'm fine. I can have this conversation. So
So I
what
can
could be
agree.
a little test that we
Yeah.
could do for both ourselves and
Hmm.
also to watch for in other people?
Yeah. So I think for the other people comes a little bit farther down in our steps, for having difficult conversations. For ourselves, what are you feeling in your body? Well, number one, do you know this is a trigger situation for you? This topic, this, person, this whole, if you know it's a triggering situation for you, you've experienced it in the past, then that's a clue that you need to really work hard on regulating yourself. And then where do you feel, how do you feel in your body? Like that's one of our first clues that we're dysregulated is that we're starting to feel things in our body. Anxiety, rapid heart rate. And that could just be nervous to have the conversation because it's a nerve-wracking conversation, or it could be this is more anxiety than I can handle in this conversation right now. I need to use a strategy to calm down, if that makes sense. Um, if you are already frustrated or angry, you might feel your jaw clenching, or you might feel tightness in your chest or your stomach. Like, I find that sort of this middle section and my jaw are where I feel a lot of my emotions. If I'm anxious, my heart will beat really fast. Well, also my legs will, be like jello. That's really fun. But well, yeah, especially when you're talking in front of people, that's helpful. Standing up, falling down. So check in with your body and see how you're feeling. Um, if you're noticing those signals that you are feeling, starting to feel those elevated feelings, what's the strategy that you're going to use? Like, have a go-to strategy that you're going to use to settle it. 4-7-8 breath is my go-to strategy. Breathing in for 4, holding for 7, and then breathing out slowly for 8, because that turns on the relaxation response. So that's the test for yourself. Like, check in with your body, check in with your thoughts too. If you're having sort of inflammatory thoughts, you may not be ready for this conversation, or, it could go south real fast. For other people, I think our next step, no, our third step, we'll get to the other people test in a minute.
Okay.
Um, so, in terms of regulation, know your own story, what triggers you have, check in with your body, and then what strategy are you going to use? 4-7-8 breath. Affirmations are good too when you're going into a different, like a strategy to regulate. Affirmations are good, and they can be serious affirmations, like, something that indicates that you can handle this conversation, that you're capable of it, or it can be sassy, whatever you need at the that moment, whatever your affirmation is that's going to get you in the right headspace to have that conversation. If
So
you
let's
feel,
give an example of that. Like, I can do it would be a simple one that maybe we might teach
Mhm,
our children, or I can try, or I can
mhm,
get better,
mhm.
or I
I'm
can
going to
take
do
a
my best.
break.
My best will be good enough,
Yeah,
right?
I can take a break and come back stronger.
Mhm.
Um, or what would be a sassy one?
Oh,
Because those ones sound more like
and
they
I
would
say
stick in
those
my
words,
brain
I'm
better.
a badass. I can handle anything that comes in this conversation. I mean, whatever your organic language or a way to pump yourself up or calm yourself down, depending on what you need to go into that conversation. Some of us who are, conflict averse might need a little bit of pumping up affirmation, and that might involve some language. Whatever your organic language is around calming or pumping yourself up, to have that conversation. I would say an affirmation would be good in that situation. And also knowing that you don't have to take on other people's negative energy. Like
Mm.
maybe your affirmation is, I can retain my own energy. I don't have to take on whatever
My
energy.
energy is safe with me. My
Yeah.
energy is what I create.
Hmm.
Okay, great. So, can we summarize this regulation piece as like self-awareness?
Hmm.
So, this is our own temperature. We're going to take our own temperature. We're going to figure out how we are doing both internally and how our body is feeling,
Hmm.
what thoughts are running through our heads. And we're going to know that if we're not regulated,
Hmm.
this conversation needs to have a pause.
Yes, and so upregulate or downregulate. You either like being calm is what we need for this conversation, but sometimes to get there, you have to upregulate if you're really sort of, conflict averse, upregulating to a state where you can feel brave enough to have this conversation. But yes, that is self-awareness is absolutely sort of the encapsulation of that, you know, that piece.
Okay, so we know. So we'll pretend, in theory, that we're regulated,
All right,
and that we're in
done
tune with
our
everything that's
breathing. We
going
are ready
on,
to go. So,
and that we don't need to take a pause or don't need to redirect for another time. What's our next step?
so I think along with the regulation, this next step, consider it like there are just different considerations as you're going into this conversation. Are your expectations reasonable? What your outcome that you're wanting, is it reasonable? Is it, I mean, it might be worth having the conversation even if you don't have your outcome, come true. But what are your expectations? Are you, and really it depends on the situation. I think when we were originally talking about this episode, we were thinking about maybe some school-based conversations. And so for parents, are your expectations, whatever you're asking of the teacher, principal, counselor, whoever you're talking to on campus, are your expectations reasonable?
Hmm.
Is it, are you acting out of emotion? And the same goes for teachers, in these conversations, and counselors and principals in these conversations as well, making sure we're regulated, what we're expecting is reasonable, and we're not acting out of, too much emotion. When you're advocating for something in particular, um, are you bulldozing? Are you coming on super strong? Versus are you entering this with the intent to find a solution, right, that fits for
Hmm.
everybody, not just trying to bulldoze? And this goes for work situations outside of school settings. This goes for relationship situations with spouses, kids, because sometimes as parents, we want what we want. We want our kids to do what we want them to do, and we may employ a little bit of bulldozing to do it versus stepping back and asking, are my expectations reasonable? Do they need support or scaffolding? And probably with spouses, we could use that too. Are our expectations reasonable? Do they need support or scaffolding? Um, are we ready to hear their perspective? Or are we, up on the bulldozer ready to drive right over them? So those are some considerations. And then what are you modeling for those around you, right? So like if you're in a conversation with your spouse, your kid, your kid's teacher, a parent, we want to model what we want from them.
Yes.
So just those are considerations. So then you regulate, consider how you're entering this conversation and if any of these things are present. And then the third one is, I think, the most important one: listen to understand instead of to respond. And that's where we have the test for how you know others are regulated, picking up on those nonverbal cues. Um, and if you feel like you can't get out of starting that conversation, even though they say they're fine, right? You reference that. Start the conversation, see where it goes. Maybe listening with the intent to understand versus respond will help them to feel seen and heard, and de-escalate that whatever's going on underneath the fine that you're like, are you really fine? Um, so when you are present with them, with your body language, you're making eye contact, you're nodding, you are summarizing or restating what they've said.
Yeah.
You're asking open-ended questions to clarify things. Um, you are expressing empathy. Now, that's a hard one, especially if we've got feelings going on. But I mean, that's the thing about difficult conversations is they cause emotions to bubble up. So
Hmm.
if we are able to retain that regulation and help the other person feel seen and heard, then you actually may get your chance, right, to feel seen and heard too.
Yes.
If they're fine at the beginning and you are listening and affirming and helping them feel understood, they may actually be fine by the time it's your turn, if that
Yes.
makes sense. Um, it's not magic. It doesn't always, work. Some people are too too fine, to get to a point where they can in a conversation. Um, but that's when you notice things. You're noticing things to them all along. I notice that you're crying. You seem really
Mm.
upset by this. I notice that you're really tense right now. What's going on? So you're noticing when you're restating and summarizing and listening to understand, you're noticing their body language to them verbally,
Mhm.
which helps them to feel, and you may get back, yeah, I'm angry, but if you're regulated enough to hold that and be there for that and work through that with them, then there's a chance you can find a solution, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so let's summarize back those first three
Recap. Yeah,
steps.
I said a lot of words.
Well, this is a lot of really good information that people are going to use. So
Yeah.
I want to make sure that we can really distill it down. The first one is you need to be regulated and you need to have built up the skill of
Yeah.
self awareness to be able to determine if you are regulated.
Yeah.
And then you need to have kind of like a more, I'm trying to come up with the right word, but like universal perspective where you are considering the needs of others. You are
Open-minded, I
considering
think.
the needs of the situation.
Hmm.
Um, and you're looking at the expectations that you have and maybe that the other person has too. And then the third one is you are actively listening,
Hmm.
not passively listening. You are responding back and really listening first, I think, is the key because when people feel listened to and validated, they feel like there is a connection and a bit of love there,
Yeah.
even in a tenuous situation. And like you said, they might even just be fine after you've just listened.
Yeah.
Maybe that's all they needed. Maybe they didn't need the actual conversation, they just needed to be heard.
Yeah.
So that might even be the end right there. But let's pretend that's not the end.
Let's pretend, because
Let's
often when
pretend for a
you're
minute.
navigating a conflict
So
situation,
we're regulated, we've considered the other's point of view and their situation and the greater situation, and we've listened. Now what?
so we've listened without judgment and without agenda. That was the other part. Open-mindedness without judgment, without agenda, except resolving whatever difficult thing that is. We've heard them. Hopefully they'll give us a chance to be heard as well. I mean, that's the whole idea, right? Is to have, if there's something we need to express, if we're starting, then we need to also stay regulated within that conversation. If we haven't started with them, if we are the one who is starting the conversation, um, we need to be sure we stay regulated and don't use inflammatory language, if that makes sense. And then they will have a chance to respond, constantly checking in with ourselves, because it's likely they're going to say something that does trigger a physical and emotional response. So continuing to stay regulated. If they're not in the place where they can have the conversation and they're saying inflammatory things or doing things that are making us uncomfortable, we can always say things like, if it's a personal relationship, I love you too much, I value, and if it's not a personal, I value our relationship too much to continue this conversation right now. It doesn't feel like we're getting anywhere. I wonder if taking a break right now and coming back to this would be a good idea. um, because it can go south real fast. And if you continue down that road, you may or may not be able to come back. And if emotions are triggered, sometimes we say things that we don't mean in the moment, or that we mean but would never say, right? It's a think it or say it moment. And when our amygdala is in charge, we may just say the things that really would not be productive. So I would say, that maybe taking a break and stopping that conversation might be the best thing for us to do in that moment,
And I
and
like how you said, I wonder if we should take a break instead of, we need to take a break right now.
right, you're treating me like crap and I'm not going to stand for it. I mean, there's a place for standing up for yourself like that, but I think this is a another way to stand up for yourself that is less
Abrasive.
Inflammatory?
Yeah,
Yeah. So you're saying,
inflammatory. Yeah.
I value our relationship too much to continue this right now. I'm feeling a little elevated. I can see by your body language you're feeling a little elevated too. Let's come back to this. I wonder if coming back to this at even, even if you're more directive and say, let's come back to this at a time that we're both, it's a compassionate directive versus a we need to end this right now, right?
Yeah.
The tone
Because
of
of you,
yeah,
right?
because of you. You're not doing what you
Yes.
need to do for this conversation to be like it's a more compassionate tone and statement that still can have that effect of I wonder if because some people will bulldoze that and say nope, we need to finish this right now. You can set a boundary and say I'm not feeling like this is going anywhere. I'm not feeling comfortable in this right now. I value our relationship too much. I'd like some time. So you can be a little more directive with that and still be compassionate in that conversation. The trick is when our amygdalas start to, our lids start to flip, remembering that, right? Because there can be a lot of freezing in the middle of conversations that are starting to go south. Either freezing or um,
Fighting.
fighting, right?
Hmm.
And
Or fleeing.
yeah, but I mean, fleeing inward, I think, leaving a conversation in that compassionate way, I would not consider fleeing. I would consider that
Especially if it has like
participation.
a time, like, we're going to take a break for a half an hour and we're going to let our brains do no fighting.
Hmm.
And we're also going to let our brains do no numbing. We
Yeah,
are just going to take a break.
yeah.
And I think if you have a time that you're going to come back, it's not fleeing, it's productive. But I think if you just say, I'm so mad and we're done for right now, and then we're going to take a break, and then you walk away without that time to come back, that can feel like fleeing because it might be a long time before you get back together.
And there are patterns. Sometimes people will get into the pattern where they will fight. It will not be productive. They will not resolve it. They'll take a break and not schedule a time to come back. And then everything will be like time passes like it does. And the feelings fade like they do. And it's like, oh, everything's fine. We
Hmm.
don't need to go back to that. Oh, but you do because it's going to come up again. And if that pattern repeats and repeats and repeats, that's not solving the issue,
No,
right?
no.
So making sure that you schedule a time, at least loosely. Hey, tomorrow morning, especially if it's at night and you're tired and it's been a long day and it's just not getting anywhere. I theoretically love the don't go to bed mad, but oh my goodness, friends, get some sleep.
No, yeah.
When you're
You
that
gotta
tired,
play the long game.
yeah, honestly,
If
you
this
know,
person was going away tomorrow, sure.
yeah,
But
but
if not, then this is a long game. This is the
and there's
infinite
a
game.
compassionate way to say, this is unfinished.
Yeah.
We're both mad. You know, I still care about you. You still care about me. We'll handle this in the morning, you know?
Yeah. And we have to work tomorrow, so let's get a good night's sleep.
So, what do we want to, let's see, what do we want to do here? Because I think there's some debrief that we can talk about after you're done with the conversation, what to do in your own mind. There are also some strategies for really difficult conversations. And then also, what stands out to me is how to paraphrase for
Hmm.
people who don't quite like what do you mean restate what they're saying? Do I say it back verbatim? So those are three things that I think with our time left we could talk about. Um, so I wonder if paraphrasing would be a good road to go down right now.
Yes.
Okay. So when we are restating what the other person said, you it can feel a little clunky, right? You can feel like saying the same thing back, but that's not really it. You, when you hear it and you give back your understanding, it's to make sure that you got it right. So saying the same thing back really isn't going to hit with them, isn't really going to resonate or make them feel heard. So, um, if they say it's really frustrating to me because when I get home from work, there are clothes everywhere and the dishes aren't done and da 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 da. You know, a paraphrase might be, the house is really messy when you get home from work. And you can even make the leap, or it bothers you that the house is really messy when you get home from work. You can even make the leap and say you'd feel better if things were picked up around the house when you got home. And so that's sort of your understanding. And they can say either, yeah, I would feel better if things were picked up around the house. And then you can go into problem solving. Like, it doesn't have to be you, the person picking up, but um, either they say, yeah, I would feel better if things were picked up around the house, or they might give you some other thing that they actually meant. I don't know what that might be, but point being, it could be that you got it right, but it could be that you missed the mark, and that's okay. They will then clarify it for you. But the operative thing is that they have felt heard, because you were like, okay, let me test my understanding, versus saying, but you don't know how hard I work all day, and be getting defensive, right? So if you can test your understanding and they can be, oh, they're actually listening, then you can get to problem solving. You can also say, I do work really hard every day and I need help with, maybe we need to come up with a chore schedule, get the kids involved or whatever. So
So
them
you can
feeling,
go through some problem solving
yeah, so them
if
feeling
both
heard.
members are calm, regulated, listening, and open to it.
Yeah. So they're heard, then hopefully you get a chance to feel heard, and then some problem solving can happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was thinking one of the things I'm trying to do is to talk less. So
Mhm.
talk less, listen more, and when I'm rephrasing back, I'm trying to come up with a newspaper headline like
Okay.
messy house, less peace at home. Like, so when they come to me with their problem, I'm trying to come up with fewest words that say what they're saying back, so that we can be like almost like a shared vision. Like, yeah, we see this, and very neutral.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, you messed up the house, and oh, but I'm working all day. But wait, I'm working all day. Like, and
Yeah.
then you get everything confused. So very short um, responses that
Hmm.
are neutral.
Yeah, and it's hard. It's a dance. It's an internal dance when we're doing this conversation. We're having this conversation because you have needs that you need to express, things that you want to get across, and a solution you want to find. And also, in order to get to that, you need to take into account that there's another person involved. So it's a dance between their needs, your needs, their need, and you're not just going to be a doormat. You do need to, make sure that you are getting across what you need to get across. It's not just all about listening to them, but when you are listening to them and summarizing, rephrasing, paraphrasing what they're saying, I do agree that less words, because that decenters you and it helps them to feel heard, more heard, if that makes sense.
And I
Um,
also think it provides a challenge for your brain to get it into less words. And if you can handle that, then your prefrontal cortex probably still works.
yep, you're not in your
It's
amygdala.
it is a it's almost like, well, if you're stuck in your thinking brain, then you're not going to be in your primal mammalian brain, like your fight, flight, or freeze brain. So it's like keeping yourself in that sort of distilling down, summarizing
Mhm.
can help you, can give a place for some of your energy to go.
Yes, and as you were saying that, fight, flight, or freeze, I think in these conflictual or difficult conversations, I think there's one we need to add that has been added over the past several years, fawn.
Yes.
And especially with a conflictual
Yes.
situation, some of us will go into fawn where oh, it's okay, and we'll back down
Uh-huh.
to preserve the safety that our brain feels that we need in this relationship with this person. And if it's truly an unsafe situation, then that's a whole different ball game. Like we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, the trauma, the long-standing, abusive situations. That's not this. Um, for your run-of-the-mill everyday difficult conversations, then we need to be aware of the fawn response as well, um, so that we are actually solving the problem versus, you know, oh yeah, we had the other person may think, oh yeah, we had this conversation, it's solved, but really we didn't stand up for what we needed because we got to in our sorry, back here, down here somewhere, amygdala, and back down. So it's not solved. We still are stuck with the same problem. So we've talked about regulating, how to do that, when to do that, how to know you need it. Considerations for going, and all of that has a lot to do with self-awareness. So building our self-awareness as a human skill is important. Considerations as we go into the conversation, are they reasonable? What are we modeling for people? And are we up on our bulldozer ready to roll over everybody, or are we going to find a solution that works best, not just getting what we want? We've talked about listening to understand versus respond, and that is a lot of that's a lot of other awareness. Looking at their body language, listening to their tone of voice, reflecting back what they've said, being open-minded, asking questions that are open-ended and clarifying types of questions, and doing so as much as you can without judgment or an agenda, except to solve this problem. And that can make things de-escalate and more smooth. We talked a little bit about what happens when it doesn't go to plan, and again, we're back to the regulation. And then afterwards, debriefing with yourself, how did that go? What were my patterns of behavior that were positive? What were my patterns of behavior that didn't serve me? If it went well, that strengthens your perception of your identity as somebody who can handle difficult conversations. If it doesn't, like, how you interpret this interaction is important, right? Because we become our story that we tell ourselves. So if it didn't go well, we need to excavate some thoughts, feelings, beliefs that we are likely to develop about ourselves from this situation. So looking at those good things that you were able to do in the situation, if that's compassionately suggesting a break and walking away, if that's retaining that self-regulation even for a short time, whatever good that you did do, you were able to do in that conversation, really reflecting on that and giving yourself, a pat on the back for doing that, especially if it didn't go well. How we handle future difficult conversations, how we interpret this will affect how we handle future conversations like this, whether we are more avoidant because it didn't go well, or we are willing to step in even though it didn't go well. It all hinges on our interpretation of what happened and how we handled it and what we're capable of. So I guess my encouragement to people would be to really look at those things that you did well, and even the ones that you did partially well, and give yourself some grace and some encouragement for the things that you did do well, so that the next time you can say, okay, I can build on this. This didn't go as well as I wanted it to. It wasn't all under my control. I did the best that I could. Next time, here's what I'll do differently.
And you notice that progress.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what happens when nothing goes to plan?
Crawl back in a cave and lick our wounds. No. When nothing goes to plan, then you have to adjust your expectations, I think. Just off the top of my head, I'm thinking, well, then I'm just going to have to adjust my expectations. Maybe this is a person that's safe for me to be around. Maybe it's not. Maybe this is a situation that's not going to change, so I have to change my expectations. Maybe it's a situation I have to get out of. I think it varies highly. But or maybe it's just something we come back to at a different time when the other person is more regulated and ready, when, like, especially if we weren't able to hang on to our regulation, maybe it's just something we practice and come back to later. I think that's where that debrief of the situation, like sitting with yourself and reflecting, how'd that go? And in the moment, if you think it's an irredeemable situation, give it time. sometimes when we reflect in the moment and our emotions are still high, we're reflecting based on those emotions rather than fact. And when we have some time to sit back and go, oh, I'm thinking about that other person's perspective and I can see where they're coming from. Maybe this is just a situation I don't spend a lot of time around, a person I don't spend a lot of time around. Maybe it's not irredeemable. Maybe it's just, okay, that's who they are. This is who I am. We tried. And maybe we reduce our time together. Maybe we go back and try again later. You know, it's going to be highly variable based on the situation, I think.
So you have a right to protect yourself
Yeah.
and to understand when maybe a situation is just not changeable right now.
Hmm.
And then become clear about that and then maybe find some ways. Now, what happens when somebody comes to talk to you and
Hmm.
they are trying to bulldoze,
Hmm.
they are trying to attack?
Hmm.
Maybe it's verbally, not to the level of abuse,
Yeah.
but they are not looking to solve a problem. They're looking to tell you something and maybe just take out whatever frustrations they have in their life, and you are just the lucky recipient.
Lucky you.
Yay, you won.
Yeah.
So what do you do then? What's a strategy that you have for those people that come out with guns blazing?
I mean, you can cut it off if you feel capable. You can cut it off right there and say, I can see that you're so. I mean, reflecting back is always going to be a helpful thing to do because then that alone can decrease the intensity of their feelings. Um, I see that you're really upset, and I'm wondering if this is the best time to talk about this. I
Mm,
wonder if another time when we can be a little more calm, I'm really interested in finding a solution with you. Like that right there can decrease. But I don't know about you. If somebody comes at me guns blazing, I'm gearing up, right? So we have to again come back to that self-awareness. What am I feeling in my body right now? And if you're capable of saying, wow, I see that you're so upset. This means a lot to you.
mm.
I'm wondering if this is the best time to talk about this, if we can calm down a little bit. And I would not suggest telling them to calm down. That never works. But just saying, I wonder if we can find a more calm time, time when feelings aren't so high to talk about this, because I'm really interested in finding a solution with you.
Oh, I like that calm
Yeah.
time because
Hmm.
it directs it away from them
Yeah.
and it comes across a lot less threatening.
Yeah.
And I want to highlight another word you used earlier was elevated. It's like
Hmm.
you just said elevated, which I loved because then they couldn't misconstrue and be like, oh no, I'm not elevated, I'm furious, or because sometimes if you said, I'm mad,
Hmm.
or I see you're mad, and they're like, no, actually, I'm just really sad that our relationship has turned into this. And you've
Yeah.
misjudged their emotional state. So I love your more generic word of
Hmm.
elevated because it says we can't yet have this conversation, but it is not infringing upon what they might be feeling.
Hmm.
Your inferencing may not be the best, or maybe they're not really aware of what they're feeling. Could be
And I
either
think
of
that
those things.
in those conversations, it is okay to take a guess. I think that's totally fine. And like I said, they'll tell you if you're wrong, right? But if someone's coming in hot and you see they're coming in hot, elevated is a good sort of neutral. I see that feelings are elevated right now. I wonder if there's a better time for us, and even just a better time. And they might say, no, I want to handle it right now. Okay, so then you start to do your active listening. And if that is not working and they are just heaping on verbal abuse, again, you can try to cut it off or you can gray rock. Now, there is no um, research behind this, but it has been, I think that the majority of the places it's been sort of referenced is with narcissistic abuse. And I'm not talking about narcissistic abuse here. I'm just talking about sort of another way to kind of talk about it as vanilla ice cream phase. You're not giving them any reactions because if someone's coming in that hot, chances are good they're looking for a reaction from you or to make you feel a certain way, usually small. And so you become as uninteresting to that person as possible. You nod, you give short, factual answers, um, non-committal answers. You avoid arguing. You keep personal and sensitive information private. Um, you know, and then you cut the conversation off as quickly as you can. You hear them. You give short, non-committal answers. You do not give them anything to latch onto to keep going. But if they are truly abusive, I think that a good thing to do would be to say what we referenced before. I don't feel like we're getting anywhere. I value our relationship. And, you know, no matter what the relationship is, I think that's a statement that you can use. I value our relationship, because even if it's a relationship where you only have occasional contact, but you have to have that occasional contact, that's a valuable relationship. You can't get out of it. It's valuable to have it going well. So I value our relationships too much to continue down this road. It doesn't seem productive to me. I'd like to continue this conversation another time. And that's a situation if someone's really interested in making you feel small in a certain way. That's a situation where a more directive but still compassionate end to the conversation. I see that you're really upset. I don't feel like we're going to come to a solution with this conversation going the way that it is. I'm really interested in finding a solution with you. So we're going to need to reschedule for another time. So, but yeah, the gray rocking, you're not trying to be rude or non-responsive, just to protect your energy and give them nothing to latch onto to continue the abusive behavior, if that makes sense. And I mean that in the general everyday sense of like yelling at somebody or, insulting somebody. We all,
Yeah.
I think, have had those situations where someone comes in hot because they're mad and they're raising their voice and they're not particularly fond of you as giving you fun sort of names, right? The insulting. And
Yeah.
so I think that in those everyday sorts of, well, hopefully that doesn't happen every day, but you know what I'm saying, those everyday
We hope it's not every day, but
constant abuse situations, it can
yes.
be, you can still use that sort of.
So we know that when our energy gets dampened,
Hmm.
it doesn't feel good.
No.
What are some things that we can do to let go of those feelings that have come on board that we aren't necessarily responsible for, and we have listened, we have regulated, we are aware of the considerations. They have come at us with some very negative energy, and we have absorbed some of that energy. What do we do now? How do we let go?
Especially if you are a person that like, that I'm going to take this personally and I'm going to hang on to this, right? Because that can really change things for
No,
you.
I don't know anybody like that.
Um, So letting go of it becomes really important. Not that you let go of it like, oh, it never happened,
Right.
or there isn't a need to come back around at another time. But that's where your debrief comes in, where you're like, okay, I did the best that I could with where I am and with what I had available to me and with what they threw at me. Evaluate what they said. Is it true?
Mm.
Is it, if it's not, if there's not validity to the claim, then let it go. You get to choose what you let in and how it makes you feel. Just because somebody said it doesn't make it true, doesn't mean you need to let it in, right? I give the kids the analogy of The Incredibles, the movie The Incredibles, where
Huh?
Violet has her force field. Throw up the force field. Like, it you don't have to let it in. They can throw whatever they want at you, but it doesn't have to be yours. It's theirs. Like, put it where it belongs. The other things that you can do are physical. Go for a walk, shake it off, dance it out. Like something to like physically shake the ick off, can be really helpful. I heard on a podcast, oh, it was years ago now, but how dogs, when they have a stressful interaction, when they shake everything and it all goes flying, humans do that too. It feels a little silly, but go for it, or
I
go for a
see I
walk
see
or a run.
ducks doing that too.
No, right?
Like they have like a little skirmish and then they
Hmm.
shake out their wings
Yeah.
and that's a great
I know, right?
visual.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, even
just
if you're just doing it mentally, if you want to do it physically, go for it. You'll feel silly, but it might
put
work.
on a little Taylor Swift, and you
Exactly.
got that.
Not in my house, but I mean, I would listen to it. The rest of my family would revolt. But
Earbuds.
earbuds. Okay, so the joke in my family is that, we're old. And so we used to call AirPods AirBuds. And so my kid goes, "What do you mean, basketball playing dogs?" You know, the movie Air
Yes.
Bud. So that's the joke in my family. Can never figure out what do I call those things again. So anyway, little side note.
So what? So okay, let's go over everything once, and then we're gonna do our tiniest next step.
Okay.
So last run through of everything. Stay regulated. Know
Yes.
your own story. Know where you're coming from. Consider the situation from as many perspectives as you possibly can.
Hmm.
Listen, decenter, try and be as neutral as possible and
While still getting
actively
your needs met, right?
and yes, and actively respond. Use open-ended questions and paraphrase back instead of saying the exact words that they said like a parrot. Withhold judgment, and then hopefully this just right there, those three things can de-escalate the situation. If not, then we can try gray rocking, vanilla ice cream face, or gracefully exiting the conversation with a statement like, I value our relationship and the situation is elevated. Let's come back at a calmer time.
Yeah.
And now, and then once all of that's done, if we have absorbed any of this, we need to shake it off
Hmm.
and we need to evaluate, was any of it true and is there something I should be working on? Um, and then make that feedback into your own story. Like, I did better than I did last time.
Yeah,
Might
and
be a good response.
reflect and interpret in the most positive way possible so that the
Yes.
next time you go into a conflictual or difficult conversation, you're not, it doesn't add to the avoidance, that you feel stronger and more capable because you have identified things you did well that you can build on.
Okay, so what is our tiniest next step? What's our little micro move? What are we going to do moving forward when we're presented with a conversation that might become a difficult conversation?
Yeah. I've had a couple of different opportunities to do this lately because we're going through some adjustments in our, family in terms of, possibly moving and things like that. And that's a stressful thing for everybody, having to be out of your house for open houses and, out of your routine and keeping your house, you know, looking like people don't live here for for showings and so just really trying to um, check in with my own self first and then step out of myself to listen and reflect back, yeah, this is really hard for you too, I get that, you know so I'm going to say, to decenter myself in those conversations, first check in and make sure I'm regulated, and then to decenter myself and really just listen and reflect back and recognize that um, there are situations in which the other person doesn't need to know how I'm feeling. I just need to hold space and listen to them, you know?
That is the same thing, but only said much better by you. um, Mine was going to be just a bit shorter because I think that um, my goal is going to be to not take it personally.
Mm, yeah.
And by doing that, I'm going to decenter. I'm going to have less judgment. I'm going to be able to be more neutral. So mine is going to be don't take it personally.
I love it. Sounds great. Thank you for joining us today. Um, This week, we encourage you to choose the smallest step forward and just keep going. So, with our topic of having difficult conversations, choose a really small step, something that you can do this week. Maybe it's even just, oh, I'm going to check in and know how I'm feeling um, at any time, whether or not you're in, or heading into a difficult conversation. I'm going to check in and see how regulated I am or am not, and do something to change it. And just know you don't need to do things perfectly to make progress. Small changes add up.
And we're so proud of you. Keep showing up, keep learning, keep trying your best. Progress will happen. And we'll see you next time on the Human Skills Lab.